I was talking to my sister, as I often do, and we were talking about how I really wanted to pick up tennis because it's something I've always wanted to do but never got the chance to do it. She encouraged me to try to book lessons and said that if I did well enough, I could potentially train kids and make money off of it. I got a little bit annoyed, not gonna lie. Because why can't a hobby just be a hobby? When has it become the norm for us to try to capitalize on every single thing that we do? Why can't we just enjoy things anymore? Why do we always have to be productive? But before we get further into that, welcome back to Lemoni. If you guys see me looking this way, it's because I am looking at my laptop for my notes, okay? Let's just not comment about that, please, okay? This topic is something that have been interesting me for a very long time, which is why last week I put up an easier video for me to try to properly articulate my points and flesh out this specific topic. Now, I want to say I understand that my sister was coming from a good place. She knows I have been unemployed for a while now and looking for some ways to make money. She thought that she was just giving me good advice about that. In reality, this is like a much larger issue. It has become the norm in our culture to try to monetize and optimize every single part of our lives. Hobbies are meant to be a creative outlet, something for you to do to distress, rewind, chill. It helps us to expand our horizons and allows us to create a community for us and people around us. At least that's how I view hobbies. I did try to look it up because I realized that not everyone had the same idea of what a hobby is. And there are multiple different definitions, but in general, they all have the same premise. It's an activity you do regularly that is supposed to bring you enjoyment in your free time. It is supposed to help you feel better. Most articles I have seen put emphasis on enjoyment. Also, that is exactly why hobbies are actually good for your mental health. According to the Harvard study they conducted, where they had two different groups, and one group would regularly do their hobbies and the other would not. And they started to basically see how that affected their well-being. They periodically asked questionnaires about their health and well-being and were followed for 4 to 8 years. Compared with people who didn't have hobbies, those who did reported better health, more happiness, fewer symptoms of depression, and higher life satisfaction. These findings were similar across all countries. The study is observational and doesn't prove that hobbies cause people to be happy and healthy. But the researchers say that hobbies such as arts, crafts, games, gardening, volunteering, or participating in clubs involves creativity, sensory engagement, and self-expression, relaxation, and cognitive stimulation, which are linked to good mental health. So hobbies are supposed to help you go through life, especially I feel under capitalism. But this system is incredibly individualistic and isolating. Workers us spend vast majority of our lives and our jobs that we hate around people that we don't necessarily love, or around a job that we moderately like. Regardless of whether you enjoy your job or not, it is extremely time consuming and energy taxing, and there's very little agency for you in your workplace, which tend to be extremely suffocating. Hobbies tend to help with that. It creates a space for you to unwind, relax, and connect with other people. It is also a form of agency. People reclaim their lives and their time outside of work hours, because during our jobs, we feel like our time in life doesn't necessarily belong to us. But lately, people have been seeing hobbies as merely ways to make money. Not only are you supposed to monetize your hobbies, you also have to be productive. Because what's the point of having a hobby if you're not going to make money off of it? Enjoyment is not something you should strive for. Monetary gain is the only thing that really matters under capitalism. This actually reminds me of a Reddit post I heard on the podcast Smosh Reads Reddit Stories. Great, by the way, podcast, highly recommend. But this is a specific episode was about hot takes, so takes that not majority of people agree with. And I remember this specific one, and I actually looked for it, but it was titled, "Certain kinds of hobbies deserve to be held in higher regard than others." Come on. I will read sort of the part that kind of annoyed me, that irked me a little bit, right? Playing a sport, learning an instrument, singing, dancing, painting, writing, these are activities that require time and years of effort to become good at. They're admirable not just because they're cool, but because there is something deeply attractive about a person who has dedicated so much time to mastering a hard skill that executing it now feels relaxing to them. Lately, there has been a push online to classify things like watching movies, playing video games, watching sports, or listening to a podcast in the same category as these hobbies. They aren't. They're based on consumption, not creation. That doesn't mean consumption-based activities are bad or useless. Everybody needs ways to relax and unwind. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a show, a game, or a YouTube binge after a long day. But if that's all to your personality, then you are unfortunately a boring person. First of all, in my opinion, not a hot take. A lot of people actually agree with it and believe in that. And this is actually a symptom of capitalism. Enjoying a movie is not perceived as important because if you're not creating some sort of value, then you are actually a failure. The poster only cares about value creation, and hence why they only qualify hobbies where you're actively creating something as only good hobbies or the better hobbies, right? I am trying to do quotations, but both of my hands are occupied, so I can't. So I hope you got that. But as we saw earlier from the Harvard study and from the different definitions, hobbies don't have to be about skill or value creation. They can be activities that provide you with relaxation, self-expression, social interactions, etc. Creating value, while important, in my opinion, is not a prerequisite. Not to mention, you can actually get all of these things which are important in a hobby from, for example, as mentioned by the poster, YouTube, right? You can relax while watching your favorite YouTuber, and when you join the community of fans, you get the self-expression and the social interaction part of it, which according to experts are why hobbies are good for you. But in my opinion, the poster only looks at hobbies from a lens of productivity. Also, I think it's very wrong to assume that watching a movie is not creating value. I have already mentioned this on the channel before, but watching and reading fiction is very important because it helps you increase your imagination and become more empathetic and ethical. Not to mention, it can lead to creation of arts from new and fresh perspectives. Also, people who are usually really into movies know a lot about the technicalities of how to make a movie and can catch things that regular folks like us cannot quite catch. So the idea that it doesn't require skills is also slightly incorrect. Also, value creation can exist in hobbies like that. Let's say, for example, an avid movie watcher creates a club where people meet up and watch and discuss movies. That's value creation. Also requires some form of skills to be able to critique and speak about those movies. But even talking about this and telling you all of that feels like I'm giving an explanation. I don't agree with that. I think it's totally okay to watch a movie because you like watching movies. But that's exactly what the word has come to be. We constantly are trying to maximize, optimize, create value, add any neoliberal buzzword here and it will work. All in the same vein, to constantly to push people to be productive, as if it's inherently wrong to just rest or enjoy the moment. Not to mention, our lives have started to feel really corporate, especially when we started using terminologies that are usually reserved for businesses in our daily life, like productivity, optimization, value creation, anything maxing. All corporate neoliberal terminology that are usually preserved for the business world and economics, and yet we're starting to use them on people. Now, quick disclaimer, I don't think that productivity is inherently bad. I think that when humans are productive, we feel a sense of accomplishment and achievement that is important. However, I do think that we have taken it a little too far. Like, for example, if you spend your whole day resting, in the back of your head, all you can think about how you wasted the entire day and how you were not productive enough. It's always push, and never, hey bro, you can chill a little and enjoy the moment. It's okay to feel content in your life. I also think that the Reddit post is incredibly ridiculous because if it weren't for consumption, there would be no creation. This video, for example, if it weren't for the fact that I read books about productivity culture, I would not have the correct terminology and theory for me to talk about this video. If I did not consume the podcast, which by the way I did for entertainment purposes only, I could not have critiqued this post and the poster's worldview, right? We often extract, whether consciously or unconsciously, from our environment where we consume things. And from there, ideas are born. It is ridiculous to insinuate that there is no value to consumption. You can gain inspiration from anything, even reality TV, for example. But this is all part of the system. It wants us to create a general sense of dissatisfaction. Andrew Gars, who's a political philosopher, talked about this a lot in his book, The Critique of Economic Reason. Great book, by the way. He calls it an organized creation of dissatisfaction. There's always something that you have to do, or there's always something that is wrong. You simply cannot enjoy or be content in your life. You have to be disciplined, lose weight, but also you have to be healthy. You have to be productive, even with your time off. You have to meet up with your friends, go on dates, stay up to date with the world news. You have to take care of yourself, of your house, and somehow you have to do that all in the few hours that you have off after a long shift at work where you have absolutely no energy to do anything else. We stop feeling satisfied, rightfully so. And to feel better, we get offered to purchase things that will elevate our moods. But we still feel sad, depressed, and anxious because we constantly feel like we have to be productive and we're not. There's this constant anxiety about missed opportunities that we did not seize. Even when you're trying to relax and take time off, you get people on Reddit, like the poster I just talked about, who tells you that if you're not maximizing your hobbies, you are a boring person. And when you start feeling depressed and having bad mental health, they'll tell you that this is not a systematic issue. No, this is a you problem. Everyone else is doing just fine. And to fix this issue, you do not need political organization. No, you need to be more productive. This is exactly what they mean as organized creation of dissatisfaction. From the beginning to the end, people feel dissatisfied with who they are, what they are, where their lives are going, and they end up feeling overwhelmed and depressed. And in order to feel a little bit better, we get robbed into consumerism, which is a form of distraction. In fact, we get distracted by everything in this situation, whether it's scrolling or any addictive activity, anything to take our minds off the fact that we are not happy. And the next steps are usually obsession with self-improvement. Now, I love talking about self-improvement. I really want to improve myself, especially growing up sheltered and not learned a lot about the world. I really, really care about those things. And I understand the lure of self-improvement culture, but I will tell you, not work. And I've already talked about this in a video about how I dislike glow up videos and how I don't think they're good. But a quick summary is these videos and tips are very shallow in nature, an extremely selfless level without any real discussions regarding systematic issues like inequality, capitalism, etc. Instead, they focus on the self as if we exist in a vacuum. Now, content is very individualistic in nature and doesn't offer any real advice that actually lead to real change. Because this culture is built on very quick results and improvement takes a long period of time, they refuse to address major economic and political issues that actually hinder that improvement. So we become obsessed with productivity because we have no other way to start feel better about ourselves. And that's when we start trying to optimize our lives. We start tracking, organizing data, and trying to optimize it fully. We start treating our life like it's a business where we're trying our best to maximize our profits. Amina Lee made a great video about this. I will put it up here for you guys to go take a look at, but it basically discusses like productivity culture and the effect it has on us. And I understand it fully. Like, I'm the type of person who loves data and love looking at data and love seeing how far I've gone, which is why I love like recording my activities on Strava, right? But it gets to a point where our life becomes a little too rigid and constraining, and we start to lose that sense of spontaneity that it can have. In the process of trying to do better, we take on another exhausting task alongside our jobs, which are already extremely exhausting, and so we have to work more and more and more, and we end up having less energy to do anything else. And that's why we tend to neglect a lot of our relationships and friendships in that process. I have seen a lot of people online talk about how in the process of self-improvement they had to cut off a lot of relationships because they couldn't do it all. Treating life like that leaves us in a state of constantly wanting more and more and more. There's nothing wrong with wanting more. and self-improvement and all of that, I understand that this is all just a product of the system, but it truly strips us away from our agency and our humanity. It creates even more dissatisfaction because we are not able to do everything we have to do or we're supposed to do, and we already have enough of that as is. Like, we don't need even more. Feeling contentment and allowing ourselves to enjoy our hobbies without that productivity pressure, without the monetary aspect. To read for the sake of reading, to write for the sake of writing, to fix a habit just to feel better, and enjoying ourselves without restraint or guilt of the fact that we are not doing more. To simply just enjoy life. Anyway, I'm very, very passionate about this subject. I read this book in 2025 called The Resistance of Work, and it's one of those books that will essentially change your life. That chapter on consumerism is insane. If you have a shopping addiction, highly recommend. In fact, if you are interested in this type of thought and ideology, I highly recommend you read that book. It's really, really good. So what do you think? Why can't we as a society just enjoy things? Why are we so obsessed with productivity and working harder? Do you think that's good? Because I see some people who really enjoy those things and think this is great. Or are you like me, who thinks that these usually are just distractions from issues that we need to address, and rather than putting our efforts towards them, we become obsessed with productivity and optimization and hobbies that are only important if you are creating something, because hey, it's not okay to have fun. And if you do, you're just a boring person. Anyway, that is all for me today. I would love to hear your thoughts about this down below. I have to go now because my lunch is here and I want to go eat. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.